Thanks for listening to Fuel Half Tank. This podcast is a condensed version of this month's episode. Fuel is the official podcast of the 434th Air Refueling Wing. Join us for airman connections, leadership insights, mentorship, and happenings mixed with some fun and humor. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any person or business is ever intended.
Welcome to the second edition of the Fuel Podcast. I'm your host and the Command Chief here at Grissom Air Reserve Base, Nathan Parks. Today we've got a great show for you. Our guest's going to be Master Sergeant Hansel Orozco. He's from the Grissom Chapel office. We're going to get to know him a little bit better, have a little bit of fun, talk on a personal level. And then we're also going to talk about a topic that both of us are passionate about, and that's resilience. Let's get started right away. Most of you know him. He's all over this base. I see him all over. It's Master Sergeant Hansel Orozco. He's the 434th Air Refueling Wing Senior NCO of the Year. He works over in the chapel staff as a religious affairs airman. The chapel was recently named by AFRC as the chapel ministry. They received the Presence Award for just being out there, and a lot of that has to do with his actions and what he does and the great staff that he has surrounding him over here. You've seen him around base. He's currently single and looking, not on base, but he's out there looking. But please welcome Master Sergeant Hansel Orozco. So let's learn a little bit more about you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
Near the Woodlawn Lake area.
Okay. Is that called Military Town, USA, San Antonio, right?
People have referred it to that. I go, no, it's San Antonio.
Yeah. So you call that home?
I do.
All right.
I do. Love it there.
Your parents live there?
Both my parents, my twin sister, and my brother live there. The rest of my family's from Nicaragua, and then they moved to San Antonio. And I have a sister in Houston and one in Tennessee. There, that's the whole thing. Because I know that's where the questions start going.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah, but you're a twin.
Yeah, I'm a twin. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How was that growing up?
I don't know what it's like any other way. You know?
Okay, yeah.
So having a twin, pretty interesting. Definitely found out that she was a lot prettier than I was all the time. Every time.
Yeah.
People were always like, oh, these are my parents are like, these are our twins. And her name's Celine. Well, I'm not gonna say her name. I'm gonna say her nickname is Cell. And like that's Cell, and that's Hansel. And they're like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. Hi, Hansel. And that's it. That's all I got. Never got handsome, nothing.
Yeah.
You know, started putting lipstick on my face. Like, I feel pretty too.
Which I should probably be offended by, because someone said you kind of look like me.
Right, exactly.
Which
so
probably the best compliment you've ever received.
Not just someone, like 4 people told me that.
Yeah, it's probably the best thing you've ever seen. But anyways.
It's up there.
So married? Are you married?
I'm not married, single.
Yeah.
I don't know about looking, but I'm here.
Yeah. Kids? Any
no
kids?
Kids.
No?
I have a dog.
Dog. Yeah.
Some people count that. I don't. I count. It's my dog.
Yeah.
You know.
Him,
I take care of him.
Him, her. What is
him?
it?
His name's Apollo.
Apollo.
Yeah. For those people that have met him, they already know he's pretty great.
Yeah. All right. You have any hobbies?
Got a lot of hobbies. I'm single.
That's right.
I'm 33
right.
and single. So yes, I got a lot of hobbies.
Yeah. What are your hobbies?
I play piano. I love playing tennis. I grew up playing tennis. Skateboard a little bit, not great. I just like riding around on a skateboard. Mm-hmm. Riding on bikes. I game a lot of video gaming, a lot of tabletop gaming as well. That's probably my favorite thing to do. Is anything, almost anything competitive, and it's a form of LARPing, okay, and it's a lot to explain.
Right. Did you, we're recording this? Like,
I know you're recording it, which is why there was such pause.
Yeah, there's like 4 people that will know now that you are a LARPer.
They're gonna make fun of me.
Explain to someone what LARPing is.
So LARPing is live action role playing, where you go to the woods and you pretend to be these fantasy type people or characters that you create for yourself. But I play a format of that called Dagger here, where it's not magic and spells like they would do.
Yeah, where we see the video of the guy like lightning bolt.
Right,
lightning bolt.
yeah,
that's the best YouTube video of that guy.
That's LARPing. That's what LARPing is.
That's where I picture you.
Dagger here is, if you've seen those recreational medieval fighting, but they use like wood and they, or was it SCA? They use wood and metal and they actually hit the crap out of each other. So we use it's foam constructed like
pool noodles.
Fiberglass core. It does sting a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, fiberglass core with swords and shields and arrows and spears and stuff. And I love that stuff because that's one of the rules is you have to hit hard enough for the other person to feel it, right? So if you go up against someone that's like, I barely even felt that, like, okay, then where's my heavier one?
There you go.
We got a rhino hide over here.
If you tune into this podcast to be educated, you just learned a whole lot about LARPing.
It's a lot of
fun. Or whatever you called the second time.
Dagger. We just call it Dag.
Okay. So we've said resilience here a couple times. Let's dig into this. What's your definition of resilience?
It's your recovery from a stressful situation. I think that's my best blanket cover. Yeah. Without getting like real specific, that's what resilience is to me. Yeah. And what recovery is, whatever gets you back to normal, whatever keeps you stress free.
Yeah. So that's similar. You know, I was thinking about this, and the kind of definition I came up to is your ability and the speed at which you bounce back to normal from a disturbance.
There you go. That's way better than how I put it.
But then there was another one that I looked at, and I was like, well, what about resilience in wildlife, right? Is if we have a forest fire out here and everything burns to the ground, what's resilience look like out there? And it's, well, in a few weeks, maybe a month or so, grass starts to grow.
Right.
You know, because the earth is resilient.
Right.
And it bounces back. And so I almost want to take that word normal out of there. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, kind of, you may not go back to normal. Because maybe normal's what got you in that situation, right?
Right.
So new growth. Your ability to bounce back. I love reading these books on people that we just see one thing, right? We see one part of their life. We don't get to see the struggle that it took for them to survive to get to that point.
Right.
So what do you think your definition and the Air Force's definition, because remember you did resiliency tactical pause, right?
Right.
And then we do resiliency training, and we do the, you know, how many times have we all seen it on some little social media post or something is we got to build resilient airmen.
Right.
Do you think your definition and the Air Force definition is the same? Or what do you think the Air Force definition?
I'm not even going to try to think what the Air Force definition of resilience is. I think they want you to get back to the mission, right? So I'll say that part. For myself, resilience is, well, besides the definition I gave you in the past, I would say whatever keeps you stress free, whether it's a change of mindset, or doing the things that you enjoy doing.
That's phenomenal. You know, so you're a senior NCO. We got a lot of people that were charging with this whole, hey, you need to build resilient airmen. So how do you know if an airman's resilient? Like when you're walking around, you know, when I run into Josh, right, you know, and I'm like, here's the Dreamweaver man. He's got a great life. Right. How do I know if he's resilient? Yeah. Because that's what I've been charged with. That's what the Air Force has said. Hey, you need to build resilient airmen.
Right. Conversation. You have to get to know your folks, and you know, don't be weird about the conversations that you have with people. You can honestly just say, I'm just trying to get to know you. You're my troop. Right. Hit that caveat. And in an appropriate way, I have to say those things. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's part of the training.
Yeah, like I don't want someone to take that and be a weirdo about it. But having a conversation, get to know, like I've gotten to know Josh. Sorry, everyone calls you Josh. I'm so used to it. I'm going to call you the Dream. I've gotten to know Josh, and even having, for one, himself telling me there was one UTA where he's like, man, I've been working all this time. Like, I can't wait to go home and rest, right? And I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I can see it in your eyes. Like, that's not, I know what you look like normal. I know what you look like on a good day. This is not normal. Like, I'll let you go. I'll stop talking your ear off and stop going off topic, you know?
So that it's a definite balance there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's certain people that they just don't want you to dig in their life,
Right.
They don't want you
And that's
to,
okay.
you know, dig in there, and there's no real. I know we say that a lot, and I hear that a lot in training, and it's like, hey, you should get to know your people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the person I am. I've never struggled with that because I want to get to know you,
Mm-hmm.
because it's at my core, right? It's part of you talk about core values is I want to get to know you, and I want to know how I can help you get to where you want to be.
Right.
And, and to for me to look at that and say, how do I know that you're resilient? Well, yeah, it's when I pass you in the hall every day and I'm like, what's up, O? And you're usually like, living the dream. And this day you're like, nothing.
Right. I'll never say living the dream.
I know. I don't do that. But you know what I'm saying? It's those small things that I get to know you because I care.
Right.
Not because it's my job,
Right.
not because of, anything else, but because I care about you. And so I think for me to really know if someone is resilient, you have to care about them.
Absolutely. How do you show that care?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a great point. Otherwise, you have to rely on them to tell you.
Right.
Hey, I'm struggling right now.
Right. And you've been there like, I never would have guessed.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do. Some people do prefer to keep to themselves. Some people don't enjoy sharing, and that's okay. I've definitely bumped into folks like that. Part of my gig is going around getting to know people and talking to them. And there are some people that don't like having long and lengthy conversations. But I'll tell you, even those folks here recently have come into my office. The folks that hardly share anything about themselves have come into my office and said, maybe you should stop by this area. We could use some.
But it's that rapport,
support,
right? It's that because they know you care.
Right.
That's why they're asking you to come by.
Right.
And so, but what about how do we teach it?
How do you teach
Resilience.
Resilience. So besides the RTA training that the Air Force provides, the resilience.
So that's one side, right?
Yeah.
But so you take that training that's not provided, but you're a supervisor that's on the line, or you're an airman that is maybe not in a leadership position. You're still charged with training up some resilient airmen around you and yourself. So how do you teach that?
Oh, that's tough. I know people's knee-jerk reactions are I'll just say, suck it up or something.
Yeah.
And that's for everyone out there. At least someone is trying. At least someone is trying to care for you in that way. The very first thing I would say is talk to whomever, right? So that would be one way of teaching people how to teach resilience or how to become resilient is talking it out. At least it doesn't have to be this powwow session, but at least pointing to someone saying, everything going okay? You don't have to tell me, right? If you know that person's not a sharer, but is something going on that you need to take care of now, or that we need to look out for? At least give me a yes or no.
So the resilience training is a lot like, that physical training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what works for you, and what works for you in diet, or what works for you in exercise, may not work for me. You may be a keto kind of guy, and I may be like, no, I'm a vegan kind of dude, or whatnot, and I'm not, by the way. But
that's okay if you are. I like vegan food.
Yeah, that's so. But it's that finding what works and finding where that individual needs are, and man, it's resilience takes on. It's, if you really look at it, it's such a broad spectrum,
right?
And it's what is resilient to one person, someone else, like you're saying, is like, why don't that person just suck it up?
Right. And we're all built differently.
Yeah.
And one of I'll tell you something that wasn't me before when it comes to resilience and what I am now. or what I try to be now, is compartmentalizing things.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a tough one to learn, right? Because I will, like, my emotions will, I don't want to say use the word take over, but they'll bleed
over. Yeah, bleed over.
into other things. If I have an argument with the dream, and then I go to lunch with other folks, I might be in a sour mood, and they're like, "You're a little crabby right now." I'm like, "Sorry, some other things."
I've been at those lunches with you.
Yeah.
Like when you don't get the shoe deal that you want, and you're like,
the Nike sneakers app is like the worst thing.
You know
I might delete it.
You know what that's called? That's called the scarcity effect. Have you ever heard of that?
I've not heard.
So scarcity effect, think of it as so our brain and our emotions are in a certain size. Like if you look at it in IT way, it's just there's a certain bandwidth that we have, right? If you look at it in like plumbing wise, then it's a certain size pipe that everything has to fit in.
Right.
And what the scarcity effect says is, as each of those, even if you're compartmentalizing, it still takes up space in that bandwidth. It still takes up bandwidth. So even if you're like, you know what, this is not work stuff, this is home stuff, it still takes up some of your bandwidth.
It does.
Right? And sooner or later, all of that bandwidth gets eaten up. Right. And so the scarcity effect is that, hey, even if you're compartmentalizing, that still contributes to the totality of how much stress you have in your life.
Right.
And so then that whole bleeding over piece is because you don't have any more bandwidth. Yeah. You're sharing bandwidth now. You're sharing bandwidth on, your home life is now sharing the same bandwidth as your work life. And your relationship life, and it's the people that come in here, and it's, hey, the last thing they wanted to do was show up for a UTA because of all the stuff they have going on at their home. And then it's it's that day that they forget their patch or something.
Right.
And then someone comes around, is like, hey, you're not running the right patches, you need to get that fixed, and they blow up, and they're like,
yeah,
you don't even know me.
Right.
You didn't ask me what was going on in my life. Is there a time where your resilience has been tested that you want to share?
Oh, that I want to share? Let's see if I could think of one. Well, I'm sure I could. There's plenty. I'll do fun ones. What I mean by fun ones, I mean like losing at a game constantly over and over, say a tournament. Like that bites. That does take its toll. Like I don't like losing. Yeah. And that's not to the point. I want to make this clear. When I lose, I don't throw the control and throw a tantrum. That's not what I mean by I don't like losing. That's called throwing a tantrum. I just don't like to lose, and I'm like, okay. So I try to think to myself, well, what do I learn from this loss? What do I need to work on? But then you lose again. You're like, okay, well, what do I need to work on now? All right, maybe these other things. Then you lose again. You're like, all right. Maybe I'll just uninstall this game, never play again. How about that? Then I never have to learn any lesson again. How about that game? And you start getting mad at the game or at yourself about things. But never throwing a tantrum. But that's definitely a moment of resilience where things are happening that are out of your control. You're just getting beat down, right? They're just scoring another goal, and you're like, all right, well, I'll try to do this. And I'm like, why do I always feel like I'm a step behind every time? So
you ever feel like that at work?
Yeah. Constantly, actually. There's always something that could be done, we could be improving on, or something that I may have forgotten to do. Yeah. That the deadline's coming up and now I got to scramble, or something that I just procrastinated on. I mean, we're all human. Things occur, and that happens a lot.
So what happens when you're up against those, and now do you feel like that comes into play with your core values?
Oh yeah. Especially
and that drift we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard. You prioritize everything, and then they tell you, well, you got to really prioritize like minuscule. Like, well, how are we? You get your valedictorian at school, but then you get into like the cum cum laude like type of things of what priorities things take. I mean, you have top secret clearance, but then you have what like the kilo and all those like types of clearances. Like, well, so then there's even more top. Like that's by definition top secret clearance is like the top, but now you're telling me there's like little individual things on top of that.
I think the word priority there was no plural for it until like in the 1940s. I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So there was your priority.
Right. Now your priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in life, I mean, I think everything's balanced, right? Like, so when it comes to things at work and what I do is I have to make things a priority in a time scale, right? So I'm here full time. I'm AGR here. So Tuesdays I dedicate to this, right? And then Wednesdays are for that. And then Thursdays for going out to visit these folks. And Monday I'm going to visit these folks. Like I compartmentalize it that way. And it's fluid because sometimes things come up that take a priority. And then but the number one priority though, above anything else, is taking care of the airmen.
Do you think there's a time where you have to step back and say, I gotta put myself first right now. Like I need help.
Yes, absolutely. When we talk about service before self, a lot of people think it's about overworking yourself.
Yeah. It's difficult and I think you hit on a key point there. Is sometimes we're like, well, I'm not going to take a knee because service before self.
Right.
Well, important part I think to remember is about service before self is it takes a healthy you to really be effective for your service. Mm-hmm. You, the airman, you are the weapon system. Your weapon system, who you are and what you're bringing to the table, and that diversity of thought and the ideas that you're bringing, the energy that you're bringing, the pieces that you're bringing people back from adrift, all those things, that's what sets us apart from places like China or Russia or Iran, is we allow that. It's that senior NCO core, that NCO core, it's that officer core, it's that everybody is still them. And so to really be a good spot of service for self, you have to be a healthy you mentally and physically, which gives you the capability to make and the capacity in that scarcity effect, right? It gives you the capacity to make those decisions in high stress, a very contested environment. And so to truly live service before self, it takes our integrity, of saying when we're hurting and when we need help. And it takes the integrity of knowing, hey, our people around us, and that's what we're here for.
Right.
But it also takes that excellence in all we do, right? With all the core values to say, hey, I know that we had a mission to do this weekend, but this person needs a little more attention this weekend. So, man, I really appreciate you taking out your time out of your day of talking to people and a lot of stuff that you have to do to come out here and share with us and sharing a little bit about you. And I want to share one more story, and just because I think it's appropriate for this time.
Sure.
And then we'll wrap this up. And while I'm sharing this story, I want you to think about the section of what am I loving, right? And so we do that at the end of this, is that you're going to get to tell us, hey, what's one thing? It can be a video game, it could be whatever, of what you're loving right now. It could be the weather, it could be whatever, right? Okay. And so, but I want to share this one story. So I'm going to share my resilience story, one of the resilience stories that I have, and just to kind of paint a picture for you. I just pinned on Chief back in 2016. Just had this great party out at our house in Vegas, and lots of friends and family had came in and everything else. And I was running a squadron that we were operating at a real high ops tempo. And we were chasing down some of the most evildoers out there in the RPA community, most people know it as the drone community, and a lot of strikes. We were dealing with a lot of different issues and everything else, but it was a high stress but high value job. So I get a phone call from my wife, and I'm sitting in my office, and she tells me that she just talked to the counselor that my daughter was talking to, and my daughter's 13 at the time, and the counselor informed my wife that she hotlined my daughter. So she called the state and said, this girl's not safe to be in the home. So I'm sitting in my office, and I get this information. So I start to break down, and because I'm like, what's this mean? And my wife being, a former she was in the childcare industry, or and did that, and she was a foster care worker and all those things. Is she said, they're going to take her from our home, and so here I am, a newly pen chief, leading a squadron. I didn't have a first sergeant, wasn't authorized one, and I'm sitting in my office and I start to cry, and I start breaking down. Somebody walks by and they just close my door, which I appreciated. I'm an emotional dude, and so I appreciated that. And I break down and I get off the phone with her, and I'm just I'm like, I'm a failure. I failed as a parent here. I got all these people that are looking up to me. I'm trying to help all these people, and my family's falling apart. Cops are going to come to my house and take my daughter from me. And my daughter, like, what's she going through? Like, how can I not fix this? And so all these things are running through my head. And I'm like, my family is falling apart. And I'm like, I need to get myself together. And I know my door is the farthest from the door to get out of the building, of course, right? I thought about going out the window. That wasn't an option. Air Force makes it where the windows don't really open anymore. So get yourself together. You gotta suck it up, right? You gotta walk out of here. Don't let them see you hurt. So I pull myself together and I open the door. And there's a senior airman standing there. He said, "Hey, Chief, you got a second?" We know what that means, right?
Right.
That guy's got something going on in his life. I got all this weighing down on me right now in my own life. I said, "Sure, man. I got a second." So he comes in, he sits on my couch, I sit across from him. He said, "Listen, I'm struggling really bad with life. Things are horrible. And I don't know if I can keep going." I wanted to say, I know the feeling. Say, "Hey, talk to me. What's so bad in your life right now?" He said, "Well, I play this game called World of Warcraft." And he said, I played this game for the last 10 years. And this guy's like 23, 22. And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I play with the same people all the time. There's like 8 of us. Some of them he'd never met before.
Been there.
In person, right?" And so he says, "I play with the same people all the time." Well, my cousin's one of them. My cousin and I, when we're tight, we're like brothers. And he got a girlfriend. And he asked if she could play with us. So she started playing. And she doesn't play the same way we play. And so I had enough the other day. And I was like, "Listen, we're not changing how we're doing things just because this girl steps in here." And everybody got mad at me. And they want me to play with a different group. He's like, "This is my life. This is it." And I'm sitting across from him, and he has no idea what's going on in my life. But in his world, it didn't care, because his life was turned upside down. And I said, "How bad is it?" He said, "Chief, that's my whole life. That's all I do." I mean, he was getting paid for people to watch him game. I'm not a gamer, right?
Yeah.
He had some Switch or Snitch or Twitch. There we go. Yeah. Account, right? And so he's getting paid for people to watch him, and he's like, "These people are ruining my life." So I said, "Hey man, this is a big deal. But I don't know that I have the skill set to help you through this problem. Or even the capacity right now." I said, "Can you hold on one second?" So I walk out, I grab this senior master sergeant, bring him in. I said, "Hey man, you know about this game World of Warcraft?" He's like, "I've been playing this for like 15 years. He's getting kicked out of his group. Like, there's a situation," and this guy's like, "What? Hey man, are you all right?" And he starts having this sympathy and empathy for this situation. And I know the me that's it, I'm like, I'm trying to deal with my daughter's about to go into a mental health facility. Like she's going to be taken from my home at 13 years old. She's going to be taken from my home and go into this. He's talking about a video game. A video game. So I said, hey, you guys got this? And Senior Master Sergeant said, yeah, I got this, man. I said, okay, you use my office. I gotta get home. And I get in my car and I start driving home. And what I realize is that no matter how big or small you think your problem is, that stress is relevant.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's a video game,
right,
or if it's your life is about to be turned upside down. Mm-hmm. If it's stress on your life,
yeah, it's
a problem, and it's relevant.
Yeah,
and so I think for sometimes when we talk about this and we go to build resilience, we throw out these big issues because they're big issues to us, and we got to look around and say there are things that we're like, it's like, man, I really like gel pens instead of the regular pens. You can be like, hey, suck that up. Right. We don't have gel pens.
It's a pen.
Yeah. But when it comes to someone saying, something that has to deal with their life and their emotions, and we have to be empathetic and sympathetic, right, because their resilience may be tempted and they're tried right at that moment.
Right.
And I think back to people I've known that have suffered from severe depression. Mm-hmm. Their resilience is tested when they wake up to get out of bed.
Right.
And the fact that they're standing in front of you, man, they've had to have a ton of resilience, probably way more than you had to have to get right in front of you.
Absolutely.
And we never know those things unless we take the time to get to know people. And we get to know their story.
And that's why we can identify that maybe even something like a pen is such a big deal to someone once we examine why is this a big deal? Like, is there something I don't know? And you never know what it ties into.
Yeah. Great points, man. I've loved having this conversation with you. I always enjoy talking with you. I appreciate you being here. Josh, always appreciate you setting this up and helping come up with the ideas for this and your input on it. So, had a little moment to think about it. What are you loving?
Right now, I'm digging a game called Dice Throne. Dice Thrones? Dice of Thrones? Dice Throne, I think.
Yeah, so good you can't even remember the name.
Yeah, so great. So great. No, it's Dice Throne.
Okay.
I remember it because it took a while for me to realize. So this game is about you're rolling dice, mm-hmm, and it's called Dice Throne, Throne, but it's a play on dice being thrown, th.
There you go.
However you spell throne.
All right, that's some gaming humor for all of you gamers out there.
It's a good one.
For the rest of us, not that I'm taking your word for it.
I get it. Yeah, it's fun.
I'll take your word for it. So for me right now, what I'm loving is, man, I got a lot of stuff. I got a new pair of boots, and that's like walking on clouds. You get a new pair of boots and you wear them every day. That's great. I got Under Armour. I got some new Armour. I went TDY and I was like, I got to buy some boots while I'm here. So I got some, but I would say I love the weather right now. I got a new Bronco, but the most thing is, I think for me, my resilience has kind of been tested with this whole move and everything that's going on, and trying to figure out how I best fit into the Grissom and how I best serve Grissom. And so I've had to change a lot of things about me to get in here to get to where I feel like we can all start moving forward. And the thing that I'm loving most is my wife. Man, my wife has been a phenomenal support. She's made jokes when I need to not take myself so seriously. She's made cookies when I need to eat my emotions a little bit and be like, all right, I feel better here, just because of having this cookie. And it's always hard for me to complain when you have that warm cookie set in front of you or something. But just all together, we still deal with some of the struggles with my daughter, and just we got a son that's a junior and a son that just the move and finding friends, all that stuff. Man, she's just been phenomenal.
Awesome.
And so I'm loving those relationships. What's that?
It's a different answer from Dice Throne.
Yeah, but again, it's the same thing. I also have boots and a truck. So, but thank you for that. Yeah. So, and thanks for coming in here.
No, thank you for having me. It's this is pretty awesome. I hope we'll find help you find another person to interview or something.
Yeah.
Like there's some pretty cool peeps out there.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.